So welcome everybody to this latest video on 162 Maths, and in this video we will go over some of the popular exam questions on the number strand at higher GCSE level. Now you can download a copy of the questions by clicking on the link in the description and have an attempt at the questions before watching through this video so you can test your current knowledge. Now before we get started, it's worth mentioning that I'll include a question breakdown in the description below so you can see which topic refers to each of the questions that we go through in this audit. Now going through some of the questions, I did notice some noticeable absences in terms of big topics that are allocated to the number genre. That is percentages, so you're looking at reverse percentages, percentage of amounts, decimal multipliers, reverse percentages, compound interest questions. So that's missing from this audit. Standard form is also missing from this. Also fractions, decimals, percentages and converting between to and fro. We also notice that there's no highest common factor or lowest common multiple questions, and there's no better value questions. So although it's quite nice to have a general test of each of the main topics in the number category, these 5 are the more noticeable absences that's going to be tested in the set of questions. So let's get started working through them. So let me just zoom in so we can see it clearly on the screen, and it's just messed up the screen. So it says, the first question says, a building company employs 2 labourers, 14 joiners, 9 electricians and 8 plumbers. For a job, the company needs one of each type of worker. In how many ways can the company choose the 4 workers? So this question, all we need to do is basically multiply each of these 4 numbers together. So it's going to be 2 times 14 times 9 multiplied by 8. And either doing that manually or with a calculator should give you an answer of 2016. Then moving on to 1b, it says 1 labourer and 2 plumbers are on holiday. In how many ways can the company now choose the 4 workers? Well, if I take away 1 from the labourer, which equals 1, the joiners has not been affected, the electricians has not been affected, and I take away 2 from the plumbers, so then it's going to be 1 multiplied by 14 multiplied by 9 multiplied by 6, and that gives me an answer of 756. Then moving on to question 2, it says here is a pattern for the numbers 1, 8 and 17. So it says 1 cubed is 1 and 1 equals 1. 8 cubed is 512 and 5 plus 1 plus 2 is 8. 17 cubed is 4,913 and 4 plus 9 plus 1 plus 3 is 17. And the question is asking us to find a number between 25 and 30 that follows this pattern. Now I would say this question is going to be on a calculator paper. So if I first typed in 25 cubed, I get an answer of 15625. Now if I add all of those digits up, if it's an acceptable number, it should equal 25. And let me just write that one again. 5, and that equals 19. So that's not the correct one. Then moving on to 23 cubed, if I type that into my calculator or work it out, I get 17576. And then add the digits together, so 1 plus 7 plus 5 plus 7 plus 6, and that does equal 26, so that is going to be an acceptable answer. Another acceptable answer is going to be 27. So 27 cubed is 19683, so if I add 1 plus 9 plus 6 plus 8 plus 3, it does give me 27, so either 26 or 27, but not both, would be acceptable. Then moving on to question 3, it says work out the cube root of 2 to the power 7 times 11 cubed over 2. Now for this, there's a couple of ways in which you can do this. I would probably assume that this is going to be on a calculator paper, but if it wasn't, then what I would do is I'd write this as 2 to the power of 7 divided by 2 multiplied by 11 cubed. Then we can treat this as 2 to the power 1, so that then becomes 2 to the power of 6 multiplied by 11 cubed. You can then work out what 2 to the power 6 is, so that's going to be 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, so it'll be 64 times 11 cubed. 11 cubed is 121 times 11, and again just working that out gives me 1331. So then if I then do 64 multiplied by 1331, it will give me my answer, and then I cube root the answer. But personally speaking, for 2 marks, I would say this is definitely going to be a calculator paper question rather. So all I need to do is get my calculator and just enter it as you see it. So shift root to get the cube root, then press the fraction button, and then use the power button to just fill in the numbers. I've just noticed, 2 to the power 7 times 11 cubed, and then scroll down to 2, press equals, and you get the correct answer of 44. Then moving on to 4a, it says circle the value that is reciprocal of 0.2. So reciprocal is, if I write that as a decimal, I get 1 over 0.2. Now 0.2 is going to be 2 over 10, which is 1 over 5. So it's 1 over 5. So if I'm then doing the reciprocal of a fraction, I basically flip the fraction, so it becomes 5 over 1, which is just 5. So I want to circle that last option. Then for 4b, it says circle the value of 8.5 to the power of 0. Well, anything to the power of 0 is 1. So I circle the second option. Then for 4c, it says work out the 27 to the power of a third times 7 to the power of minus 2. Now anything to the power of a third is the cube root, so it's the cube root of 27. And 7 to the power of minus 2, well, that's going to be the reciprocal of 7 squared. Now the cube root of 27 is 3, and 1 over 7 squared is 1 over 49. So it's going to be 3 times 1 over 49. If I convert 3 into a fraction, it then gives me the correct answer of 3 over 49. Then moving on to question 5, it says here are 2 solids. So we've got a cylinder with a radius of 4 and a height of 10, and a hemisphere with a radius of 6 centimeters, and it also gives me the volume of a hemisphere. And the question is asking which solid has the greater volume. Well, if I start by just having both of those on screen, so just so we can just about see it. So working out the volume of the cylinder, well, the formula for this is pi r squared, which is the area of the circle, times the length or the height. So there's my formula. So then substituting numbers in, I get V equals pi times 4 squared times 10. And that gives me pi times 16 times 10, which gives me an answer of 160 pi. Now I'm going to leave it in that form because just in case it's a non-calculator question, I've just showed you there how you can do it in non-calculator without having to work it out. But if it was on a calculator paper, just type 160 pi in and I get an answer of 502.6548 blah blah blah. Then working out the area of a hemisphere, well, it tells me the formula. Now what you want to do is always just double check to make sure that they have given you the formula of a hemisphere. Sometimes they give you the volume of a sphere and you then need to divide that by 2. But this has been quite nice because it's told me the volume of a hemisphere, because the hemisphere is what I've actually got. So the volume of the hemisphere is going to be 2/3 multiplied by pi times 6 cubed. Now 6 cubed is 216, so it's 2 over 3 times pi times 216. 2 times 216 is going to give me 432, so it's 432 pi over 3. Then if I then do 432 divided by 3, and that gives me 1, remainder 1, 4, remainder 1, and 4. So that then becomes 144 pi. Now again, if this is on a calculator, I just type it straight into my calculator, and that gives me an answer of 452.389 blah blah blah. Now from this you can see that the volume of the cylinder is greater, so I just need to write down something along those lines, that the volume of the cylinder is greater than the hemisphere. Then moving on to question 6. So here we've got a Surds question. Now with this, what you want to do is, as we're multiplying, I personally would say to try and simplify these two surds without crossing it out. So root 10 can't be simplified. but root 80 can be, so root 80 is equal to root 16 times root 5. Now I can simplify root 16 as 4 and root 5 stays the same, so root 80 is 4 root 5. Then with root 18, well, that can be written as root 9 times root 2, and root 9 is 3, so that can be written as 3 root 2. So then taking these three things and replacing it with these two things, we get 2 to the power of 10 multiplied by 4 to the power of 5 multiplied by 3 to the power of root 2. Then multiplying all the outside numbers together, we get 2 times 4 times 3, which is 24. And then multiplying the numbers in the surds, I get 10 times 5, which is 50, times 2, which is 100. Now 24 times root 100 is 24 times 10, and that's 240. Then moving on to question 7, it says show that 5 root 3 minus root 12 squared simplifies to give me an integer. Now let me just zoom in so you can see it a little bit more clear on the screen. Now root 12, now you can either treat this as a double brackets question, or if you spot that root 12 can be written as root 4 times root 3, which is 2 root 3, then substituting this into our bracket, what we end up with is 5 root 3 minus 2 root 3 all squared. Now if I then simplify the bracket, that then becomes 3 root 3 squared, and then that becomes 3 root 3 times 3 root 3. Now 3 times 3 is 9, and root 3 times root 3 is root 9, which then becomes 9 times 3, which is 27, which is a integer. Then moving on to question 8, it says 0.7 recurring equals 7 over 9. Use this fact to show that 0.07 recurring is 7 over 90. Well, if I do 0.7 recurring divided by 10, then I end up with 0.07 recurring. Now this I can write as 7 over 9. So it becomes 7 over 9 divided by 10. Then if I convert the 10 into a fraction and then use the rules of fractions and division where I flip the second fraction and it becomes a multiply, then all I'm left with is 7 times 1, which is 7, 9 times 10, which is 90, which is what they wanted me to show. Then moving on to question 8b, it says using part A or otherwise convert 0.27 recurring to a fraction. Now there's a couple of ways in which you can do this. So if I say, let's have a look at using part A, then what we find is that 0.07 recurring plus 0.2 equals 0.27 recurring. Now this we know from part A is 7 over 90 plus 0.2 as a fraction can be written as 1 over 5, and then if I convert the fractions I get 7 over 90 plus, and then if I multiply this fraction by 18 I get 18 over 90, which then gives me 7 plus 18, which is 25 over 90, and then I can simplify that by dividing both numbers by 5, in which I get 5 over 18. Now that's using the answer from part A. But then if I didn't use part A, then what I could do is first of all make the recurring decimal equal to x, multiply it by 10, both sides by 10, so I get 2.7 recurring, multiply it by another 10, so I get 27.7 recurring. Then from this I get 100x equals 27.7 recurring, 10x, which equals 2.7 recurring. Take the two things away and end up with 90x equals 25. So x equals 25 over 90, which simplifies to give me 5 over 18, which is my correct answer. And the same answer. That's two ways of answering that one question. Then moving on to question 9, it says for when rounded to 3 significant figures, x equals 6.37. Circle the correct error interval. Now for this, the correct error interval is going to be our first option. Then for question 10, it says Amy and Kate each catch 3 fish. The weight of each fish to the nearest tenth of a kilogram is shown. Kate says that the total weight of her fish is more than the total weight of Amy's fish. Show that this could be correct. So for this, what you want to do is work out the upper and lower interval, the error intervals for both Amy and Kate. So for Amy, in terms of her maximum weight, that's going to be 6.85 plus 4.35 plus 5.25, and that comes up to a total of 16.45. Then if we work out her minimum weight, well, that's going to be 6.75 plus 4.25 plus 5.15, and that comes up to 16.15. Then if we work out with Kate and we do her max, so that's going to be 8.25 plus 3.45 plus 4.55, and that comes up to a total of 16.25. Then we do her minimum, which is going to be 8.15 plus 3.35 plus 4.45, and that comes up to 15.95. Now, again, there are so many different ways that you can prove that this is going to be the case. But as you can see, for the example of where Kate's weight is going to be more than Amy's fish weight, well, basically I could go for Kate's maximum, which is 16.25, is greater than Amy's minimum, which could happen, 6.15, and there is one outcome. So again, what you want to do for Amy is, and this is, you could have any values within these spectrums. So for example, if you're picking one weight for Amy where it's probably in the lower end of that one, then you go for a lower end in this bracket and a lower value in that bracket. And then when you go for Kate, you go for an upper value, so something along the closer to 8.25, closer to 3.45, and closer to 4.55. You want to show that Kate's total weight is going to be more than Amy's. Then moving on to our last question, it says that x equals 400 to 1 sig fig and y equals 25 to 2 significant figures. Work out the maximum integer value of x over y. So for these particular questions, you always want to state the upper and lower bound. So for x, the bound is going to be to 1 sig fig, which is nearest 100. So we divide that by 2, and it's going to be plus or minus 50. So x is going to be 350 to 450. Or you could write 449.9 recurring. Then for y, it's either going to be 24.5 to 25.5 or 24.9 recurring. Oh no, 25.49 recurring. Then to get the maximum fraction, we want the biggest a, or biggest x rather, over the smallest y. So if I either go for 450 or 449.9 recurring, whichever you prefer, I'm going to go for 450, divided by the smallest of y's. So you can either go for 24.5 or you can go for, well, actually it's going to be 24.5. So then working that out, I get an answer of 18.36734 blah blah blah. Now the question is asked for the maximum integer, so the maximum integer is going to be 18, and that concludes the end of this number audit.